Anyway, let's go back to the comedy though, Tony P, because earlier today I got a chance to talk to an improv comic.
Ooh.
And this one is perfect for anyone out there my age who may have grown up on a show called Whose Line Is It Anyway, which has actually been on for more than 20 years. But in addition to the show, they also take it out on the road. And I got a chance to talk to comic Greg Proops all about the show, the tour, and more.
Public and I'm wearing a suit and tie, people are like, "Hey," and it makes them happy. So, I mean, no one wants to see me in a tank top and and an aloha shirt.
I personally this is one of those topics that I talk about on my show all the time about different levels of formality. Because as you can see from what I'm rocking, I'm going with the Jay Leno. Yeah, oh yeah, you got it all. Looking sharp as always. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm so sorry that we missed you when you were here in the DMV, which is where we are. But I know people have loved you for years. You've been doing improv forever. Does it still surprise you? And do you feel like you've seen it all at this point?
Oh no. I think there's something to be learned every night on stage. And also audiences are different and they change ages. And, we're playing to a bunch of generations, not only our generation of the Antique Roadshow, but, everyone who's in high school and college over the last 15, 20, 30 years has studied Whose Line Is It Anyway? So we get a lot of teenagers and college students as well. And local improv groups come to see us. So it's always new.
So that's an interesting thing about, how the audience change can really impact the show. We talk a lot about stand-up comedy, social media, and how once you put a joke out there into the world on social media, you kind of have to retire it. Everyone has seen it. They can't come to the show and kind of get that same material. You have that unique ability to every single night go out there and do something different. And so is that a challenge or is that what keeps it so exciting for you?
Well, I think it's what keeps it exciting, one. And two, the other advantage, Chris, is I'm still speaking to everyone in my group. So we don't hate each other and we don't take separate cars to the gig or anything. We eat dinner together and we still think each other's funny. So I think that's a real big advantage, that we're laughing at each other's jokes at this late date, because we go back a long way. Ryan and I have been working together since, 27 years, and we've been on the road together for over 25 years. So it's good that we still think each other's funny.
I mean, you have worked with so many different performers, so many iconic performers, present company included, obviously. What's the secret to that great chemistry? Is that something you guys knew you had before you even started? Is that something that you've developed as time went on? And what's it like when you sort of start working new members into the ensemble?
Well, new, I love, because one of our newest members, Joel Murray, Bill Murray's brother, joined the group in 2012. And that in our group is new, although we just added Gary Anthony Williams, I think, sort of as an official member, but he's been playing with us off and on for 4 or 5 years. But of course, we've been doing the CW Whose Line with him for over 10 years. So I think of the Dan Patterson, who was the producer of the show, the TV show, cast us all 100 years ago and in the English version. And he loved Americans. He'd gone to school at University of Chicago and he loved improv. So he put a bunch of us Yanks on the show and Canadians, and it really just worked. We all clicked. And of course, now we've been playing so long together that we're like the Harlem Globetrotters. We can pass the ball to each other backwards with our eyes closed.
Okay, so I was on your Instagram page a little earlier, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me is you are not shy about your political opinions. I mentioned Jay Leno earlier, and Jay made a point of saying that the last thing he wanted to do was alienate half of his potential audience by getting too political. Do you ever worry about that? Do your shows ever get political? And do you worry that it turns off the audience if they know where you stand on these sort of issues?
Well, to answer those 3 questions in order, in an improv group, we're not innately political. We're clowns and we do vaudeville. And so we lay on top of each other and we dance and sing and we really do a lot of slapstick. And we get a few political jokes in there, but I can't take my political opinions and wedge them into the group because we're in a band. So there are political jokes in the show. And I think, Chris, you might be surprised how things are changing over the last year and a half with people's acceptance of different political jokes. If I'm doing stand up, I can be as poisonous as I like because that's my personal opinion and it's just you alone on stage. I don't think it's fair to represent everyone in the group with my opinion. However, we all are pretty much on the same page. I don't know if that answers your question. And I would add this to this about Jay Leno's assertion. It's never half the audience. I think you'll find that America is not split in half. America is split into thirds. There's a third of the people who want what's going on now, a third of the people who don't want what's going on now, and a third of the people who want to be left alone.
It's a very, very astute point and interesting observation. As you kind of travel the country, what do you kind of start to notice about different areas and how different audiences respond to what you do?
That's a great question because there is a difference, you know. We play the Northwest and Northeast. And like, for instance, during COVID, those were places where you could be guaranteed they would mask, right? And have that consideration. Then you'd get to other parts of the country and they were acting like it wasn't existing at all, which is a mindset. Having said that, now it's several years past that. When you play the South and you ask people what kind of music they often say jazz, which is a very sophisticated call. Then you get to the Midwest and they never say jazz. It's always, you know, rock or soft rock or whatever, or pop or something. And then another thing I notice is when we play a lot of funk and disco before the show, which is my influence. And when you play a place like Ohio, of all places, Ohio is a funk bastion. Dayton, Ohio must have 1 million groups that come from there. Bootsy Collins is from there, and so you put that funk music on, and you see all the people in the crowd going like this, and then you get to Wisconsin, and they're like, "What's happening?" So it's really interesting to me, like the taste that goes on in different places, what people's taste is. Crowds in the South are very polite. Crowds in Canada are shy as the dickens. You can bring a Canadian on stage and they'll sit there like this. And we've had to send people back into the audience because they were too shy. And that never happens in the United States. Everyone in the United States is camera ready.
So because of that, to that point, and the way social media has sort of impacted, everybody is a performer, everyone is the star of their own show. Have the shows kind of evolved over time?
Oh, I think so. I mean, you know, they want us to do the classic games, and so we do them. We don't really hit on a lot of the modern social media junk on our show. Every once in a while, we get a suggestion for that, or someone will mention, you know, that they love gaming or something. But I think the shows have evolved as far as we try to keep up a little bit with what's going on, and you know. I think the thing, Chris, is like, it's impossible to stop the forward progress. You know what I mean? People are hipper. They're more accepting. They're more accepting of different kinds of people. We bring all kinds of people on stage, gay people, trans people, or whatever. And the crowds don't, you know, they're not that rednecky. It's a real different mindset. When I started comedy in the early 80s, you know, there was a lot of Chinese driver jokes and gay jokes and, you know, fat girl jokes. And that just doesn't play as much anymore.
Yeah. So speaking of improv, you know, you mentioned a lot of like schools and a lot of classes come to see you guys. What is the state of the improv comedy scene right now?
Well, I'm at the very apex of it because there's maybe 10 people in the world who make any money doing improv. And I'm in one of their groups. And then the others would be Colin and Brad and Wayne Brady and Jonathan Mangum. And then maybe some people in England that from the old Whose Line Is It Anyway? So I can't speak to who's making a living from doing it because that's a very difficult call. Here in Los Angeles, there's a whole bunch of hipster improv groups that play all the hipster gigs here. And then when you go to the rest of the country, as I say, we meet different improv groups. We met a group of improvisers who were all have Down syndrome, and they have their own giant group in the Midwest. And so I would say it's healthy because it's something that people really like to do. It's a big group thing that everyone could get into. It's positive. You don't have to be a stand-up comic, you know what I mean? You don't have to have that incisive point of view. You don't have to have any point of view. You can just kind of get up there and go with the flow. So I would say it's really healthy just based on the fact that we travel everywhere and meet so many different improv groups. And, they email us and go, can we come to your show? Can we meet you after? And then they want us to come to their show, which is fantastic because, we play one night and then move on to the next thing. We don't have time. But we often meet them after the show. So that's what I'm basing this on. And I feel like the enthusiasm is really there. And not that I'm taking credit personally, but I think Whose Line had a lot to do with it. Because until Whose Line was on telly, like when I first started doing improv back in the, right after World War II, there was no television show that had improv on it. We had heard about the Committee in San Francisco, Second City in Chicago, the Groundlings in LA, War Babies, this, that. But it wasn't that, it wasn't that accessible. And now you can go on YouTube and watch, 30 years of Whose Line.
It's a wild, wild world out there on YouTube.
Right?
And I mean, it's great because that is a show that I grew up on as well. And, do you get to stay in touch with Drew Carey much? I mean, he was obviously.
Oh, yeah. He just texted me yesterday. I got him on the phone here. Yeah, we text each other hilarious jokes all the time. I went over to his house a week before last, or a couple weeks ago now. Time goes quickly. We watched the Elvis movie, and Drew and I are buddies. He played with us in San Francisco this year. We did the Davis Hall, which is a famous concert hall in San Francisco, very classy. And he sat in with us there. And so he sits in with us when he can, when he's not doing Price is Right.
Very cool.
And, Drew's I don't know if people know this about him now, but he's really an accomplished guy. Like when I first met him, I met him 100 years ago when we were stand-up comedians. But when we first started doing Whose Line, his politics were different. His mindset was different. He's really educated himself. He's quite a good photographer. He surrounds himself with a bunch of different eclectic and intellectual people. And I've really seen him grow sort of philosophically as a person over the last 25 years. It's quite extraordinary because not everybody with money and the advantages to do that, that would be some of your billionaires, do that. They don't avail themselves of all that's in the world. They don't try to stimulate themselves intellectually, and they're not generous. And Drew is extraordinarily generous. He would kill me if I told you the kind of things I know about the generosity. But here's one that he admitted to. During the last strike here in Los Angeles, the writer's strike, Drew fed all the writers. All they had to do was show their Writers Guild card at 2 different restaurants, and they ate for free.
Wow.
Now, that cost him hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, because some of the writers were so broke that was all they were getting to eat. And not only did he do it during the last writer's strike, and this is where he's going to kill me, he did it during the 2008 writer's strike too, 2007 one. But he didn't want anyone to know it. So that's real hands-on generosity. It's not abstract. It's not I started a foundation. It's not any of that nonsense, because giant charities can often be specious. He literally paid cash money for everyone to eat, because he always says the writers are who made him, even though he hosted Whose Line. By the way, we had writers on Whose Line. They came up with the premises. People go, why did you have writers on the show? They're the ones who went, passions erupt on the space station when 2 explore, that kind of.
So I want to go back to 2 things. One, you said, there may be 10 people in the world making money on improv right now, or at least in the United States. One of them might be Daniel Radcliffe. Have you heard of this Broadway show that he's doing that is very hands-on and very improv based?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And good for him, I mean, he's from England, so I'm guessing that he grew up watching Whose Line Is It Anyway on English TV. A couple years ago when they were shooting the Barbie movie. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. Who played Ken?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. We went to see, I swear to you, we were over in Century City and I was going on a business thing. And they had the whole downstairs turned into the Barbie set. And Ryan Gosling walked by. He was in his Ken cowboy outfit. They had a giant horse outside and everything. And he came up to me. And I know that anybody in their 40s that's from Canada or England is absolutely a Who's Line fan because they grew up with it. They grew up with it. That's when we were on, you know. I mean, so I think it's fantastic what Daniel Radcliffe's doing. And I love his politics as well. I think he's a really outspoken, fair-minded individual.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to go back to was you mentioned all of the improv groups that come to see you. What advice do you give, or what advice do you have for people who not only want to get into improv comedy, but comedy in general these days?
Well, I can only quote Colin Mockery. Stay out of it. It's too crowded, and you're going to bump me off my pedestal. I think with comedy, in my opinion, and I'm very old-fashioned, there's really no replacement for getting up live in front of people. I know people perform online and they do TikTok videos and they do YouTube videos and they have their YouTube channels and they make 3 or 4 videos a day and they're always shooting themselves with their phone and whatnot. And then they get, oh my God, I've got 10 million hits and I'm a huge comedian. Well, until you can get up in front of a room full of drunks and hold them down for an hour with your comedy, then you're not really a comedian, in my opinion. I know that makes me sound old-fashioned. And there are some comedians that have graduated from the web to live comedy, and they're quite good. However, I did a set earlier this year over in Burbank, and the woman that I was working with complained to me that the headliner on the weekend had been a YouTube comic and that they could not do it live. And so I will quote Harrison Ford from the first Star Wars movie. Good against remotes is one thing, kid. Good against the living is another. And so you have to get on stage 2 or 3, 4, 5 times a week at open mics, work on your persona, work on your act, write, and experience the world. Read the news, read literature, read history, read feminism, learn about sports, learn about art. All of this combines to make you a better comedian. You can't be a narrow-minded individual and be a great comedian. And when I say great comedian, I mean George Carlin, Lily Tomlin, Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, you know, that I'm going back on this just so that I stay off of everybody now. But you know what I'm saying. Comics that we always remember forever are comics that had an enormous gift of understanding what the human condition is like. And you're not going to understand it in your room, taping yourself on your phone.
Is there anybody currently working? I know you just mentioned some of those all-time greats, but is there anybody that you just love what they're doing right now?
I adore a lot of different people. I think Margaret Cho, Kathy Griffin, Wanda Sykes. I think that comics are better in general than they were when I first started. When I first started, it was a lot of grumpy guys who didn't like women. And this is the early 80s. And the sexism and the homophobia was pretty wild. I'm leaving out all the comics who still trade in that because I don't feel that that's a very fruitful area, you know. If you haven't the wit and good taste and manners to not make fun of people who can't defend themselves, then maybe you oughtn't be a comic. Maybe you should be a Republican senator.
Interesting. I know one DC-based comic recently had an issue with feeling like his message was co-opted by some Republican senators. Greg, what else is going on with you? What else is going on with you? What else are you doing right now that people can look forward to? What else is exciting you right now?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm on an internet thing called We the People, WTF. And basically, it's a comedy show where I'm there with a bunch of young comics, and we talk about all the protest signs that are going on and how clever they are. And it's a very light political way of getting people involved and sort of exposing what's going on now. And something that I think young people really need to get involved with, which is participating in democracy. And this is a fun way to do it. So it's called WTF We the People. And it's really short. I'm going to shoot a bunch of them today. And it's young comics, which is, I'm the elder statesman, you know, which is, I'm fine with, to be honest. And I think that's a really fun thing. There's also a way you can win money on it. But I want to encourage young people to participate. It's your country. It's your democracy. It's your life. And if you don't get involved now, it's all going to, you know, get away from you. And so I think that this gig makes it fun because it's young comics, not just me, old grandpa telling everybody how to behave, and the humor of all the signs from the No Kings protests and stuff, which are fabulous because when a bunch of like-minded people get together, it makes them feel better. You know what I mean? We all tend to feel a little hopeless sometimes. And then I have the Greg Proops Film Club, which I do with my wife. Last night we showed Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. I don't know if you've ever seen that. An Almodovar film from the 80s. A woman, her lover leaves her, and it's just an insane series of different women having breakdowns. It was a screwball comedy. You know who Almodovar is, the Spanish director, right? So it was one of his 80s ones, very colorful and fantastic and full of his usual humor. And then we try to show a lot of cogent ones, like we showed Clute with Jane Fonda, and Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Network, movies that we try to pick movies that, well, my wife does Jennifer programs the show, that are pertinent, but that are also fun and powerful and nothing long. No 4-hour movies and no superhero, any of that jazz. This is all, you know, we show comedies. I mean, we show like Pillow Talk with Rock Hudson and Doris Day, which is hysterically funny still after 50, 60 years. So it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to eat popcorn, you know. So we showed a little movie theater here in Los Angeles. It's great. And then also got a show called Smartest Man in the World. It's a podcast my wife and I do. And we talk about history, art, politics, current events. And we give obituaries to people, you know, like obviously Robert Redford when he passed away, such a powerful individual in America, you know, that kind of thing. And we play music and talk about it because we're big jazz fans and all sorts of stuff. And then I have a new album out called, that you can see right here, The Free State of California. And I'm putting a new album out in a couple of next month, I think, that I recorded at New Year's last. And that one's going to be called, I think, Bummer Free Zone, if anyone still says things like that.
I love that. Greg, keep bringing the funk. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here in the DMV. Good luck.
Hey, Chris, I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And thanks for
Tony P. Shout